Disco party's over.
Good evening, everyone, from the sunny and very humid state of Florida. I'm your host, Dr. BJ Brunious, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for our series premiere of We Make Florida Screen Share. The first season of the show was in podcast format, which you can find on Facebook, Apple, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't listened to season one, do me a favor, go and subscribe today. You can binge all 13 episodes in the first season. I spoke with both Republican and Democratic state representatives, congressional candidates, candidates for governor, and we had a few episodes on pop culture, because you know how I like to throw in a little mix, the fall of Roe v. Wade, and my guest on season one's finale of the podcast will be making his debut on the series premiere of Screen Share this evening. But before we get to our show and get to our guest for tonight, what sparked my interest in creating a show like this, where I have conversations with thought leaders, politicians, and everyday citizens just working to make ends meet, is that I've noticed that a handful of Florida politicians at the local, state, and federal level repeatedly let us down by not taking the steps necessary to deliver sound government policy on our behalf. In fact, Instead of addressing our housing crisis, the interest rates, low wages, inflation, some politicians and the wealthy donors who fund them allow corporations to accumulate billions in wealth by refusing to pay us the true value of our work. And, by refusing to pay what they owe through taxes, I might add. And I don't think it's too much to ask that a corporation that has done well in America does right by America, and to contribute what they owe, just like the rest of us, so we can have those well-funded schools, well-trained law enforcement, and safe communities where we can all thrive. So this live stream thing is very new for me, so hopefully it goes well. But in the world of communications, there's a phrase that says, if your words don't spread, your words don't work. And Floridians, like most Americans, are not sitting down to watch the 6 o'clock news like they used to. People are not really reading the newspaper either like they used to. Folks are getting their news from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and now live streams like this one are the wave of the future. So a political party could develop the best message ever created, but if they rely on local 5 o'clock news anchors to deliver and distribute that message to voters, is that a recipe for success or disaster? Joining me now to talk about this and so much more is a guy who is not only new to this, but true to this. Wes Hodge, a legislative aide in Orange County and chairman of the Orange County Democratic Party. You can actually catch Wes and I on the season 1 finale of the We Make Florida podcast. Chairwoman of the Santa Rosa County Democratic Party, Sandy Smith. She also serves as a state committee woman for the Florida Democratic Party. Also with us is Daniel Henry, chairman of the Duval County Democrats, which covers the Jacksonville area, and a former DNC member. Terry Rizzo, and finally Terry Rizzo, former chair of the Florida Democratic Party, who now serves as the chairwoman of the Palm Beach County Democrats. Also a member of the Democratic National Committee. So, super panel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, BJ. We're delighted to be here on your premiere night.
Thank you so much for taking the time. So I chose the 4 of you for the season premiere because you all not only represent the demographic diversity of the Democratic Party, but also the geographic diversity of the 3rd most populous state in America. Sandy, she hails from the northwestern area of the Panhandle, and Daniel's from the northeastern corner of Florida. Wes is in Central Florida, Orlando area, and Terry is down in Southern Florida. So with that, Daniel, I'll start with you. Republicans have a lockdown on broadcast media with Fox News, talk radio, and they are very organized on social media. I mean, to see the precision in which the opposition knows how to use the social media algorithms in order to amplify messages which in some instances are quite harmful is flabbergasting to me. So what are your thoughts on ways Democrats can change or influence the media landscape across the state?
No, that's a great question, BJ. I think one thing that Democrats have always fallen victim of is not being willing to go in every environment in order to speak our truth and what we stand for. We get very comfortable and complacent in our own circles to talk about what matters to us and why voters should vote for our policies and our candidates, but we never actually reach out into spaces where there are uncomfortable voices that we don't necessarily always want to hear, or reach out to voters that are not necessarily as partisan and that are really looking for a multitude of different voices. So what I think we should be really doing in order for us to be able to truly get a full picture of the state and to get that win this November is actually talking to voters where they are in the spaces that they are and kind of find some innovative and new ideas to kind of push those methods through.
And let's turn to you, Sandy. When you're thinking about ways in which Democrats can utilize the tools that are available, frankly, to anybody, how do you think we can utilize those tools in order to further the messages and take advantage of that algorithm?
I think we really need to, as Daniel said, find voters where they are. I think we need to determine who our consumers are, which are our voters, and develop our brand in such a way that it speaks to all of those voters in different ways. a lot of people don't read a newspaper anymore. Facebook is really now a place where mature people are, it seems, whether on TikTok or on Twitter or some of the other platforms. So I think we have to be more diverse in delivering our messages. We have to look at local markets and find ways to be in those local markets in ways to get that information out. And messaging in a way that people understand what we're about and understand our brand as a party.
And Terry, you had the experience of leading the party at the state level. What were some of the things that you noticed were for challenges in the organization of the Democratic Party that you led? What were the challenges in really developing cohesive messaging that can actually be distributed to the masses so that they can consume it?
That's part of it. Is you've hit the nail on the head. And I also want to just emphasize we have 72 days until the election now. And if we all work together collectively, Democrats and our partners, we can do it. Among the challenges in the state of Florida, of course, is the extreme diversity of the markets, the necessity to cover markets in all areas of the state, and getting the message to people in a cohesive and systemic way. I think it's incumbent on all of us. We have now a great ticket. The contrast couldn't be greater between our message and their message, and our ticket and their ticket. And we need to, all of us, collectively work together in every way possible. And that means using every, as both Daniel and Sandy said, in every way possible, using every mechanism from Facebook to TikTok to having many press conferences, if you will, and reaching out to our partners and having us all work together going forward. It's going to be imperative this year.
And Wes, that's interesting because I was not aware of the different media markets throughout the state of Florida, but it totally makes sense given how large of a state we are and how diverse we are. What are some of the things in Central Florida that you find that work in terms of developing messaging and distributing it? We have Anna Escamani, who's in Central Florida, who's really good at using social media. What are the other things that you've noticed?
Well, absolutely. I think, and I apologize for glitchy video. Clearly, Central Florida is under a Russian hack at the moment of some kind. But first, thanks for being back.
We'll come save you, Wes.
Yes, thank you. One of the big things for sure is being on social media. Our TikTok is very popular. Our Instagram, we're running a lot of Instagram ads right now. The other thing that is really important, and I just kind of stumbled into this through a judicial race we had, Spanish media, Spanish radio. And right now, I had to call out a judicial candidate because he was funding a gentleman that had a Facebook video blog, and he was calling Democrats socialists, pedophiles, groomers, murderers. So we've really got, it is literally the Wild West on messaging when it comes to Spanish media. So we have really got to work with our elected officials and get a foothold in there, because right now we are not countering that narrative. And so when we're looking at areas of Orange and Osceola and Miami-Dade, where that Hispanic vote is essential for us to win, we've got to be present and really combating that message, because right now nobody's addressing it.
Yeah, I think that's important. How do we not only get our message out, but also combat against very damaging narratives out that are very pervasive, not only pervasive, but also that perpetuate and snowball, particularly using those social media algorithms. Anything else you guys want to add on how to get that message out, the use of technology and maybe even not technology? I think newspapers and the local news still has a place in this space.
Very much so.
But we need to. But I think that we need to certainly add, not necessarily take away or eliminate old media, but just simply add to the plethora that we already consume. Would you all agree?
Go ahead.
I was going to say I agree with that, and also I think that we don't use radio much, even though a lot of our voters use radio, and investing in the right kind of radio messaging is helpful. Here in Northwest Florida, of course, our newspapers are all Republican newspapers. And so we have to really work at getting our messages out if we're using newspaper. We've even done billboards during election. We're planning to do some this year so that people can see some Democratic messaging because they're up and down the main highway here. So I think we have to think completely out of the box on where and how we get those messages out.
I would echo that, especially here in Northeast Florida. Wes was, I think Wes and Terry really touched on this. Florida is very unique. South Florida, Central Florida, Northeast Florida, Northwest Florida, the Panhandle, they're all, in a sense, different culturally and almost feel like different states when you kind of go through them. And their media markets are fairly unique. And I can speak directly, like in terms of Jacksonville, in order for you to be able to have a message penetrate, you really have to convey it in a way that the media here feels that it's not necessarily as partisan. It kind of falls into those kitchen table topics that they would have generally been covering stories on. But you find a way to kind of make that hit to prove your point. And making sure that statewide candidates know that when they're visiting areas of your state, I think makes it crucial for them to be able to really have their message conveyed, because otherwise they'll give the same stick that they may have done in Orlando or in Miami the day before, and it really doesn't necessarily fall in the same way.
And if I may, BJ, let's also not forget texting. Let's also not forget texting. It gets a little overdone in some ways, but especially when it comes to educating voters about elections, about election sites, about who's on the ballot. Texting can be a really effective way to reach lots of people.
Absolutely. Well, my super panel is going to stick around, and coming up, we're going to talk about the Democratic primary that just happened last Tuesday.
Which side are you on? Americans who believe liberty and justice are for all? Or traitors inciting violence against our country and trying to take away our freedoms? Which side are you on? People who work for a living and care for our families? Or the Trump Republicans who block everything our families need? This November, it's time to show which side you're on. Vote for Democrats. FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
And we're back. So we're going to talk about the primary that just happened. Charlie Crist won the Democratic nomination for governor against Commissioner of Agriculture Nikki Fried, and he will face Ron DeSantis in November of 2022. I want to play some footage from the moments that transpired over the last week following the primary.
I'm just excited about this campaign. I know Florida deserves better than what we have, Chuck. I mean, we have a divider in chief as our governor right now, and he attacks LGBTQ kids. He attacks African American congressional districts. You know, senior citizens who like to vote by mail, like my mom and dad, making it harder for them to do that. He's anti-democracy. He's anti-African American. He's anti-women and their right to choose. I mean, it's unbelievable how far to the right this guy has gone in pursuit of the Republican nomination for the White House in 2024.
To be united like we have never been united before. And I will campaign up and down the ballot to make sure that Democrats are elected into our city and county commission seats, into our statewide elected positions, into our senators, and into our House members.
Ronald Dion DeSantis. I don't know why it's weird that his middle name is Dion. He certainly doesn't look like that. He looks like a Dion, any Dion that I know. But anyway, and I love when Michelle Rayner calls him Ronald on Twitter. It just gives me life. So Ron DeSantis barely squeaked out a victory in 2018, winning by less than 0.5% in a state with 30 million people. But, you know, homeboy governs as if he won this election in a landslide. So of all the candidates running this fall, I would venture to say he is the most vulnerable, not only because he won by the skin of his teeth in 2018, but because voters recognize that he is using the state of Florida to further his own personal ambitions of running for president. We know Ron DeSantis don't want to do anything in Florida. He's not interested in governing in Florida. The only thing he wants to do is use the state as a stepping stone for his own personal ambitions to be president. And what we've seen is that he cares more about Iowa caucus voters than Florida voters. So Terry, I'm going to go to you on this one because you recently attended the Unity rally down in South Florida. I saw videos from that and I saw that you were there. Looks like it was a really good event and I was proud to see it. Charlie Crist has won statewide before in the state of Florida. So Democrats have shown that they can nominate a winner, someone who's demonstrated that they can win the state. And how do you think he will defeat this very vulnerable incumbent in November?
Thank you, BJ. Absolutely. We've got a race on our hands, and the tide is turning. And I think we all can feel it from the national level on down to Florida. And as you said, I attended the Unity rally on Thursday in Broward County, and everybody was absolutely united in our resolve to go forward. The contrast between the dark, decisive, divisive dictator wannabe, Ron Dion DeSantis, as you said, who's creating the election police, who's firing school board members and state attorneys who don't agree with him, and the Democratic ticket led by Charlie Crist, emphasizing hope and help and fighting for freedoms couldn't be greater. And I think everybody is united. Charlie Crist has won before. He has a sense of optimism, and the tide nationally and in the state of Florida is turning.
And I'll go to you, Wes, next on this one. Particularly when we're thinking about how to put out a strategy where a candidate, given in the previous segment where we talked about the diversity of the state, what are your thoughts on how we can move Charlie Crist forward so that he can be victorious in November again?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you're not a straight white man, the governor has done something to attack you. From the Stop Woke Act to the loud music law now that we have in effect, the anti-riot bill, don't say gay, obviously, the attack on our trans athletes. He has set the table for us to build the coalition that we need to defeat him. We have got to get our people together. And I know it almost has become a cliche, this is the most important election of your lifetime. And unfortunately, every year it gets it gets worse. And it's true every time we say it because it just gets that much further down the barrel, But we've really got to show people exactly what's on the line right now and exactly how Democrats can make a difference. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But at the local level, we're seeing what Democrats in office can do. We're seeing at the national level what Democrats in office can do. And after 24 years of Republican control in Florida, it's time for us to take our state back and actually have a Florida government that works for all Floridians.
And Sandy, I think this is very important because historically, what we've noticed is that sometimes the panhandle is kind of left out of the narrative, left out of the story, left out of electoral politics as a whole. We've seen changes in that. When Andrew Gillum ran, he was, I think because he was from Tallahassee and from the panhandle, that sort of helped. A lot. We've seen other candidates. Nikki Fried came to the panhandle. Val Demings has come to the panhandle. So we're starting to see candidates now realizing that, that true from the panhandle to the Keys doesn't just need to be a phrase. It actually needs to be, you got to walk the walk and if you're going to talk the talk. So what do you think is important, particularly for candidates that are running for statewide office, to know about the panhandle and why they shouldn't forget about the panhandle?
Well, I think you're right, BJ. The panhandle can bring votes, and I think people discount the votes that we can bring from the panhandle. When we see a candidate come to our area and really listen and really talk to us about their platform and understand the issues in the panhandle, then they will get votes here. Andrew won in the panhandle because he spent time here, he listened here, and we have voters that really are wanting to really work with the Democratic Party, wanting us to win. To recognize in a rural county that this election is very important for us. We don't have a lot of the industries that some of the larger cities have. So whoever is in the governor's office, in the legislature, in the Senate, really needs to understand that we do make the difference in whether you can win or lose here in the panhandle. So when we are looking at who's really a good candidate for us, that means you're going to come here, you're going to listen to us, and you're going to hear what we need, and you're going to talk to us about your platform. I think that Charlie Crist is a great candidate. I'm looking forward to him coming up here and spending some more time with us. And I think in order for us to get over the line, we're going to have to pull every voter forward for this election. And the one segment that's really important to winning in November, of course, is the African American community, because we have been consistently loyal to the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party and the candidates has got to put value on our community in order to also win. A lot of people in the community, and especially young people, young Black men especially, don't feel that their vote counts, that nothing is going to change. So a candidate can get a lot more votes up here if they come and hear and speak to people in a way that the people feel like they're sincere. But we need to really pull together and get the African American community out if anyone is going to win in Florida.
And Dan, I'm going to come to you real quick. They're telling me in my ear that I have to go to break, but I'm going to come to you real quickly because I have some, not necessarily family, but friends of family who live in Jacksonville, and what they routinely tell me is that think of Jacksonville as southern Georgia, not as really a Florida. And so I don't know if that rings true. I haven't spent much time in Jacksonville, but I want to know what do you think about that? And if that is the case, how does a candidate who's running statewide appeal to an area that that really maybe looks more like southern Georgia than Florida?
Tell your friend we're slowly changing. I will say Jacksonville, we're a unique place. We are, although at the same time we are the largest city in the state, we still have a small town sense mentality. We're Southern, but we're definitely the youngest of the big four. And I think one of the things that I say Ron, bless his heart, DeSantis, has been trying to do for the last 4 years is try to get that win that he wasn't able to achieve in 2018. Jacksonville, for its history, has been the one major city in the state that Republicans have been able to count on to be able to say, hey, we like big business. We have the ability for us to be able to compete in larger cities. And this is our one place for us to be able to show that. And we denied them that opportunity both in 2018 and 2020, partly because Andrew Gillum and the Biden campaign made sure to invest in our community much more than statewide candidates have in the past. And it kind of goes to what Sandy was saying earlier. The African American vote is critical to that. African Americans make up over 56% of the registered Democrats that live in Duval County. And to put even more of a point of that, over 20% of the African Americans that live in this state live above the I-4 corridor. So it's critically important for candidates to truly understand that historical significance in order for them to be able to win, but also recognize that the African American vote is really important. That age frame between 30 and 45 that make up a large chunk of the voting population that live in our part of the state is also critically important as well. We have some of the largest medical hospitals, some of the biggest banking institutions that are headquartered here in our part of the state. And understanding that nuance that although we're a small town, we're definitely more evolved than Southern Georgia, is critical for you to be able to understand the nuance.
Okay, we blew past that commercial break, which is completely fine. We'll catch it on another end. But the reason why I want to stick here is because Sandy and Daniel sort of with the tease of the next segment. Love how you guys threw in those teases and didn't even realize it. I would just want to talk about the amazing Val Demings because there is no one who I am more excited about leading this state and running for Senate. So the amazing Val Demings, who soared to victory on Tuesday, capturing the nomination for U.S. Senate for the Democratic Party, she will face Marco Rubio in November. Rubio's candidacy is showing cracks with some major areas of vulnerability as well. So not just poor fundraising, not just poor messaging, not just poor social media, not just, anyway, I don't want to go off script. Let me stick to the script. So one of the things I absolutely love about Val Demings' campaign is that she is defining herself on her terms, not allowing the media or Marco Rubio to write her own narrative. Let's take a look.
My mother told me when someone gives you the opportunity to do something big, do not disappoint them. I'm running for the United States Senate because of two simple words: never tire.
So Rubio's entire game plan has been thrown for a loop because homeboy thought that he was gonna win this election by repeating socialist as many times in one sentence as he possibly could. That was his game plan, just say socialism, 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 and then hopefully he would get votes by that. But what he is slowly discovering is that his game plan simply isn't working because he's running against a Southern black church-going grandmother who rides a Harley and doesn't do it for show, who was a police chief of Orlando and actually allocated funds for police training, advocated for pay raises for law enforcement officers. His whole game is done. I'm sure his team is what are we going to do? So Wes, I'm gonna come to you with this because Val Demings can't. What do you think Val Demings' candidacy means, particularly for the citizens of Orange County? Because this is your hometown girl. She represents parts of Orlando. So what do you think her candidacy means for Democrats across the state as well as in Orlando?
Well, first, it really struck me when you said a motorcycle riding grandma, because the last word that I associate with Val Demings is grandma, because she is always on the go. She is always out there. We have a very special relationship with the Demings family. The mayor is her husband, Mayor Jerry Demings, and we've been so proud of Congresswoman Demings for so long. And what you said about she's great and the ability to speak, I always dread when Val Demings speaks because I have to speak after that. And she will motivate and move a room. She will have them eating out of her hand. We've known for a long time that she's exactly who Floridians need fighting for us up in Washington, D.C. It's time that we stop having this empty suit of Marco Rubio who literally does nothing. And we have a congresswoman who has proven she will hold leadership accountable. She'll hold the president accountable. She will fight for the everyday Floridian. She will fight for us. And I'm just so happy to see that she is getting the attention and the spotlight that she has so well earned.
And Sandy, I'm gonna pitch it to you next. I think it's you and I think we've both seen Val speak not only in person, but obviously on TV as well. And I agree with Wes. She is, I wonder if her side hustle is motivational speaking, because she has a way, she has a way to get you to believe in the impossible, which I think is very important because what people always say, the narrative is don't put your hopes in Florida. You can just count Florida out. And so for her to be able to create what is imaginable and make what's impossible possible just through her words, I think is butter, right? So what does her candidacy and her being nominated to represent us on the U.S. As a statewide candidate for U.S. Senate mean for you?
Well, first of all, it means to me that a sister is running, and I am very
Yes.
that she is. Not just because she is an African American woman, because she's an intelligent woman, she's a smart woman, she knows how to navigate through social, economic, cultural communities successfully, and she believes in what's right. Marco Rubio, I have lived in the Panhandle since I moved here 7 years. Marco Rubio has never come to this area. Val has been here several times, but I think also that she's proven herself. She's a proven person. When you look at what she did in the legislature in Washington, the work that she's done locally, nationally, the kinds of things that she wants to see in law, and also the changes in our community, she's the right candidate. She has everything that you would be looking for in an ideal candidate, and she has it. And I think that she can win this thing. Certainly, you know, we're behind her, and a lot of the women are behind her, but also men too, because she really is. She doesn't trade on her femininity; she trades on her intelligence and her smarts and her experience, and I think that's wonderful. I think she can beat Rubio because she is bringing the right message. It's a message of unity, diversity, inclusiveness, and freedom for people, and not about taking away our rights and keeping the same old thing going all the time.
And Terry, I'll go to you on the next one. What we frequently hear, and Marco Rubio, although he represents the entire state, he's down in Miami-Dade, which is kind of close to you. I do realize you're a little bit north of there, but
Yeah.
Sandy mentioned that despite the Panhandle being a reliably solid red area, Marco Rubio does not come to the Panhandle. I'm wondering, does Marco Rubio come to your area?
Not much. We haven't seen much of him here either, and we're just an hour and a half away up north of Miami. So nobody knows where he is. As we all know, no show Marco. Doesn't get out, doesn't go on the hustings. He doesn't show up to committee meetings or hearings in Washington. What does he do? He doesn't fight for Floridians. That's for sure. And we know that when Val Demings is elected, she will be there fighting for Floridians every day. And the question you asked was, what does Val Demings' candidacy mean for Florida and for Democrats across the state? I have one word for that: everything. It means everything. Having Val leading the ticket, and she'll be first on the ballot. The Senate candidates come first. She'll be first, and we will elect the first woman senator from the state of Florida, first African American, someone who will actually show up and work, and as her history said, someone who can take on the issue of defund the police and kind of put that to bed right away. With her history as the chief of police, she knows what she's talking about, and she can deal with that. She is leading a ticket that I think, and somebody can correct me on this, that I think is probably the most diverse ticket that has ever been in any state in the country. If you look at our entire ticket, with her, Charlie, now, and I hope we're going to talk about this, Carla Hernandez Matz as the lieutenant governor candidate. Naomi Blamure. Who am I leaving out? Adam Hattersley, and who else did I leave out?
Aramis Ayala.
Thank you.
Aramis Ayala.
Absolutely, I knew it. That's a fantastic group, and represent the state of Florida. Looks like the state of Florida, and will work for the state of Florida. And I think we all can carry that message. And I think that's one of the winning messages that we have.
And Dan, as we close out this segment, just in terms of what Val running for U.S. Senate against Marco means, how does your area, Duval County, what are the plans that you all have in place to ensure that Val wins this seat? And the reason why I bring that up is because what sometimes we notice that, what we know is that elections are won on the margins, and even the seat that is being occupied now, it was won by very, very few. I mean, we're talking about 10, 12,000 votes in a huge state like ours. So we've got to encourage everybody to not only vote for governor, but to vote down ballot. Don't forget to vote for Val. You may support her and just literally forget to vote for her if you don't vote the entire ballot. So what are you doing in Duval County to make sure that we see Val to victory?
Well, by this end of the election, we're going to make sure that everyone realizes that Duval County is the home of Val Demings. I know she represents Orlando, but she was born in Jacksonville. She went to elementary, middle school, and high school in Jacksonville. Her first job was in Jacksonville, so she is a true Jacksonville daughter. And I think many people have great reverence to not only her candidacy, but her long lineage that she has in our city. And I think she is the perfect candidate at the right time to not only deliver the state and help us take back a Senate seat that I think is rightfully ours, but also gives us a candidate that all of us can be immensely proud of. And I don't think any of us can be very proud of Little Marco. I'm bringing that term back, Little Marco's term in office. I think one of the things that he has tried to do in the past, particularly in my part of the state, is try to find those niche issues to make it seem as if he is coming in on a white knight to save some things. We had a housing development here in Jacksonville called Eureka Gardens that had a long history of slumlord status, and he kind of came in to try to get HUD to bring special attention to that. And that's one of the few things that he's known for here in Jacksonville, and for his entire career. So it's kind of breaking down that barrier to make him not seem as if he is someone that is truly empathetic about the issues that many people are dealing with, but for people to truly understand that he's just a man in an empty suit.
I can't think of a better closing to this segment. We're going to take a break and hopefully see you guys on the other side. Stick with us. No matter what we look like, what your zip code is, how much money you make, whether you're black, white, Cuban, Asian, working families deserve a safe and comfortable place to call home. But today, we've got a handful of politicians stoking culture wars, turning us against our neighbors, hoping we'll look the other way while they hand kickbacks to their wealthy developer donors. Sandy, I'm going to go to you on this one. A lot of people think that unaffordable housing is just an issue in metropolitan centers, not, in metropolitan areas, urban areas. They think that that's where the unaffordable housing is, but you're in a rural part of the state. Talk about how housing affordability is also an issue in smaller counties.
Well, it definitely is a problem in our county because this county has a lot of retired military, and it's really a county that really focuses on home ownership without thinking about the people that live in apartments. Actually, there are not many affordable housing units in our county. That has been something that has been taken up with the county commissioners and with the various city councils. And we have a significant number of homeless people because they can't afford an affordable apartment. And another issue that we run into as far as with affordable housing up here is that there are people that don't want apartments in our community. There are over 8,000 new homes being built right now. You can't drive up a street until you see a number of new homes being built. But they are in the beginning at least 300,000. And we just had a new community built that was nothing but rental homes. The rent start at $2,200 a month. That's not affordable for the average person who's making $15 an hour. And so we have a real issue up here, and not much attention has been paid to it by our current legislator or our senators. And it's something that a candidate would really win some votes up here if that was something they came to the Panhandle to address, because the cost of living up here is pretty much the same as far as housing is concerned as it is in the larger cities. Rent for $2,200 a month in a rural area is just too much.
Well, let's go to a more populous part of the state. Terry, I'll come to you. Can you echo what Sandy is saying? Are the housing issues in the southern part of the state just as bad as they are in the Panhandle and northern part of the state?
Absolutely, and I think we all know that our state is in a housing crisis. It's all across the state. And here in Palm Beach County, it was reported today that 1/3 of all the renters spend approximately 50% of their income on housing. I mean, that's unsustainable. Teachers, firefighters, bus drivers, frontline workers, small business workers and owners, retirees, all kinds of people can't afford the rising costs of rent and the rising cost of home ownership. As we all know, it's a complicated issue, and it didn't start yesterday. It's been building for a while. We live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. And with supply and demand being what it is, there's more people coming in than there is supply. And so the demand is greater and this is going up. The short-term solutions are difficult. We can talk a little bit about this, but I think our elected officials certainly need to address that. And one of the things that we need to remind everybody, in addition to just the cost of housing itself, is homeowners insurance, the whole issue of insurance. Thousands and thousands of people have already had their homeowners insurance canceled, and more are getting canceled every day. In fact, just today, I was speaking with a colleague who said they had their insurance canceled yesterday, and they were notified that the policy was canceled. And meantime, Ron DeSantis has been asleep at the wheel. He's up in the Hamptons, at a 25K plate fundraiser, for his presidential campaign. And on the road headlining this fundraiser with his election denier buddies up there. And meanwhile, down here, we have a big crisis going on, and he's just been totally asleep at the wheel. And I think we need to remind voters of that fact.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is like tangible things. My homeowner's insurance was actually canceled 60 days before hurricane season started. Can you imagine how expensive it is to get homeowners insurance just before hurricane season when they know you have to have it? And I'm in a position, fortunately, thank God, that I can afford it, although it is really high. At least I can afford it. I can't imagine what it would be for a family, a family of four who are living on a fixed income. So I'm going to go to you, Wes. Terry talked about particularly, now I want to talk about being landlocked. So Terry, Palm Beach County can't really expand east, the ocean's east. Orlando, you guys have room to expand, I would venture to say, or maybe you can correct me if that's not true. Are you noticing affordable housing or affordable apartments or affordable rentals being built in your area in order to help with this housing crisis?
Well, I believe what you were just talking about is what we call sprawl, right? And that's probably the worst thing. And in fact, Orange County and Orlando is the highest rental increases in the nation for the last year. We saw 30%, it was 25% was the average for Orange County rental increase. And really, this is going to be a moment of pride for me. We talk about why do electing Democrats make a difference? Well, our Democrat majority county council or county commission, for the first time in 45 years, Florida residents in Orange County are going to have an opportunity in November to vote on rent stabilization. We are the only county in the state of Florida who has passed this resolution using the law where we are allowed to declare a housing emergency and put it forward to the voters for a 1-year rent stabilization. That is what happens when you elect Democrats, and through the bold leadership of our county commissioners, we are going to be able to have that conversation in November. This is really, really important to us. We want to make sure that we protect our environment here. We want to work on changing the code for infill and mixed use development because we want to protect our environment at the same time as addressing this affordable housing crisis. So it very much affects us here in the middle of the state for sure.
And Daniel, we'll come to you to close out this segment in terms of what are you seeing in the northeastern corner? Are you just seeing just as Sandy, Terry, and Wes have described? Is the situation even more dire? Duval County is actually, last time I looked at the map, it says it kind of leans blue. It's kind of like maybe it's like a light blue, maybe like a periwinkle kind of color.
Perry was. I love it.
Does the periwinkle color translate into good, solid policy?
Answer is no. Our entire local government is controlled, unfortunately, by Republicans. They've had a stranglehold of it for the last 20 years. And what we're particularly seeing here is, although Jacksonville has a large percentage of undeveloped land, our city council, which is our county commission, has not done very good urban planning when it comes to how developers are able to come into our county and actually truly develop it. So we're seeing a three-front war. We're seeing families that are moving from the north or the Midwest that have cash that are pushing up the cost of average homes. So before, an average home you could buy for $250,000 5 years ago. Now you have to spend $350,000 plus in order for you to be able to get something. You're seeing large-scale hedge funds buying developments, buying homes, turning them into a new rental market where they're charging $2,000 plus for them. And you're seeing the sheer unaffordability of people that live here, that grew up here, to truly appreciate and have that American dream of home ownership. So you have a large population of people that are slowly getting priced out. We've definitely seen probably more intense cases in Central Florida, but we're slowly getting to that same point here in Northeast Florida as well.
And before we go to break, does anybody else have anything to add? Have we left anything out? We talked about unaffordable housing, but also unaffordable homeowners insurance in a state during hurricane season. Did I leave anything out that you all want to add?
Yeah, BJ, I just wanted to add also, I mean, the solutions aren't going to come overnight. It's going to take, long-term work. Our county commission also we have a bond issue on the ballot that will be on the ballot this November in Palm Beach County. And it is to fund 20,000 units of affordable workforce housing over the next several years. It's going to take a period of time. And the assessment is $4, and I believe it's $4.36 per $100,000 assessed homeowner's value. So $4, and it would add, if you have a house that's worth $300,000, for example, you'd pay approximately $13 additional tax on that. If you have $1 million home, you'd pay about $44 extra tax annually to fund 20,000 affordable units over the next several years. This is something that needs to pass. It needs to be addressed. And again, thank goodness to our county commission for putting this forward.
And I would add on top of that, BJ, this is one of those critical areas where we need to bring more visibility to how the state and our local governments are spending those recovery dollars. Yes. Jacksonville alone, between both tranches, has received $200 million from the federal government to actually invest in affordable housing and all the other things that the recovery asked for. And to date, they've spent $0 on this.
And I would just add too, senior housing is a real issue also. Yeah. We have a number of seniors that need housing, and we have a couple of senior housing communities here in Santa Rosa, but a lot of them are more of the assisted living type, which is out of the range of a lot of the average seniors as far as housing is concerned also.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk education. Stay with us.
The freedom for kids to live their dreams starts in safe and welcoming schools. And 4 out of 5 Americans agree. Kids should learn the good and the bad of our history so we can build a better future. But some extremists are trying to divide us, even pitting parents against teachers. America has united for big change before. We can do it again. Paid for by Way to Win Action Fund. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
In Florida, we know what it means to care for each other, our neighbors, and our communities. We look out for each other, no matter what we look like or where we come from. This is the Florida we know and love. This is what it means to be Floridian. But today, a wealthy few try to turn us against one another based on our differences, so they can take the resources of our communities and the wealth our work creates. Rather than pitching in their fair share, the richest 1% and the politicians doing their bidding want us to believe that there isn't enough to ensure all of our families have what we need. Imagine what we can create together when our leaders and policies show us the same care we show for one another. We can create a Florida where we are safe to move through our communities without fear, where every kid can attend a grade school, every working person gets a livable wage, and all of us have what we need to get and stay well. By joining together across our state, we can create a Florida that cares for all of us, no exceptions. We make the future together.
And we're back. So that last ad you just saw, actually I shot all the footage from that ad. I did the voiceover for it. Got a little bit of help with the script, but hopefully that appeals to people to get people to make a different choice than what they're accustomed to doing, particularly electorally. So we're going to get into education. School is a place where childhood happens. You know, when you think about it, you spend more time of your waking hours in school as a kid than you actually do with your parents. School is a place where children of different places, of different races, economic backgrounds, learn from the past, hopefully, make sense of the present so that they can be really prepared for the future. And while educators work to deliver our children accurate and honest education, Ronald Dion DeSantis is trying to turn us against our teachers, turn us against the principals, turn us against guidance counselors. He's trying to mobilize a mob against our school boards and guidance counselors as a distraction from censoring the lessons taught in our classrooms and denying our children really the resources necessary to succeed. So I'm a big fan of the political drama Scandal, right? Love Scandal, Olivia Pope. Sometimes I was wishing that Papa Pope was alive during the Trump administration or was real, because sometimes we needed B613 to handle things. But anyway, during Scandal, the main character, Olivia Pope, always took what appeared to be her client's political weakness and she turned it into a political asset. So as we think about Ron DeSantis using racialized and homophobic rhetoric to divide us, what do we think? Do we think we can use this as an opportunity to keep education at the forefront of people's minds, but, you know, kind of with a Democratic framing? Dan, I'll go to you on this. Daniel, how can Democrats make an appeal to suburban moms and dads, as well as moms and dads in the cities, so that, you know, they vote to fully fund their kids' schools, vote to ensure that their teachers teach the truth and not, you know, succumb to the divisive rhetoric on the other side?
Well, I keep on using this word, but it's definitely nuanced. I can speak to Jacksonville in a particular case. We just had a county referendum that passed on the primary ballot that would raise the millage by 1 mil to fund increases in teacher salary. That passed with over 54% because people recognized that paying teachers what they were worth and ensuring that we are able to compete in the marketplace to actually find teachers for over 300 empty positions was critically important in order for our community to succeed. And that crosses both political spectrums. At the same time, 2 candidates that were endorsed by DeSantis for school board won their elections rather comfortably. And I think one of the things we need to figure out, and we're still figuring out in this moment, is how do we carry the message that we want to fund our schools, we want to pay our teachers, we want to make sure that our kids have an equal and opportunity access to education without falling into some of the traps and the false narrative that Mothers for Liberty and the DeSantis campaign have been pushing out there. If you haven't been to one of your local school board meetings, I think you'll get a true education as to how radicalized they have turned many of these parents on issues that are not happening in school because they recognize it's a potent issue that they really can use to their advantage. And the only way that we can counteract that is with facts, with knowledge, with messaging that truly appreciates that Democrats care about our kids, that we don't want to quote unquote indoctrinate them. We want to make sure that we teach them history about what really happens. No sugarcoat, no whitewashing, and deliver it in a way that truly appreciates the nuance of our own communities. And until we're able to do that, DeSantis is going to be able to kind of drive through this kind of narrative that kind of feeds on some of the fears that many of these parents have been conditioned to feel in the last couple decades.
And we certainly love when dogs make an appearance on the show, even if it's their bark. Sandy, I'll come to you next because your profession is in the education space. So you have a wealth of knowledge in this area about the importance of, having robust schools that are obviously well funded and having, teachers not indoctrinate, but actually, just teach history. Go figure. What are your thoughts on how we can use Ron DeSantis putting education in the forefront and sort of, brand hijack, for lack of a better word, just hijack the issue from him with our framing?
Well, I agree with what Daniel just said about framing the message that we're here to teach true education. The teachers are really under stress because of what DeSantis has done. Of course, at the beginning of the year, everyone has to go through signing off on various agreements at the beginning of the year. And all of us had to sign off on that we will only teach what's in the book. We will not impart our personal opinions, a whole slew of statements that basically are muzzling the teachers and their ability to actually teach the facts that are in the books. And I think we have to get a message through that helps parents understand the importance of having a realistic education for their children. You can't have children coming to school and you're holding back certain information. We are seeing books being taken out of the libraries, stacks of books that are over in the workroom now because their parents are saying they want them out of the library because it's, I don't know, one book, it said something about pedophilia. So parents called in and now the books are out of the library. We are seeing that at school now. And teachers feel like they can't actually explore topics in depth that really gives children a clear understanding within the framework of humanity because it's facts and rote information. It's very hard now for teachers to be creative in the classroom to enhance the children's education. So we've got to get a message across and work with a lot of the PTSOs are trying to do some things, but if you have a school board that really cannot fight against the radicalization that these parents are doing, and of course here in Santa Rosa, we've had some awful school board meetings with parents, but we have to put another message through as Democrats that education is preparing your kids for the world of tomorrow. And the children really want to learn. They want to discuss various issues, but right now, most of that deep discussion and examination is actually taking place out of the school system, not within the school system where it should be. So we have to develop a very strong message that resonates across party lines. And that's the issue here. We are 2-1 Republican to Democrat. We only have one Democrat on our school board. And this past election, we have another person on the school board now that is believing in all the radical stuff, all everything that DeSantis has put in place. He is one of the DeSantis followers. So we've got to work really hard with our school board to keep our one Democrat on the board next go round. But we've got to put some messages across that resonate not just with Democrats, but with NPAs. And there are some Republican parents, I think, that would buy into our message.
I mean, I 100% agree with you. Like, even if you're a registered Republican in Santa Rosa County, I have had conversations where people are like, you know, I'm a Republican, but that craziness that goes on at the school board meeting, I don't want any part of
Yes.
that. Because although there have been videos circulating about some of our school board meetings in Santa Rosa County, um, think about the news that you see, and it is exactly like that. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them, particularly when they're voting on hot button issues. Terry, a lot of people think that, you know, in blue areas of the state, everything is fine because they don't have crazy people on their school boards. Tell
We,
us.
well, we don't have crazy people on the school board, but they're at it at school board meetings. The crazies show up at the school board meetings and are raucous. And they came after our school board members in the election on the 23rd. Didn't succeed. We elected two of our school board members. We reelected two of our school board members outright. And next one, the third one, will go up for in November. And we also have another open seat that also will be up in November again. But they're going to be coming after them full time. And I wanted to, Sandy hit the nail on the head. When she said whether they're Democrat, NPA, or Republican, teachers are frightened. They feel that the Florida has attacked them, and they're not able to, to teach the way that they should be able to teach. And I actually went to several of our school board members and a couple teachers and asked them this question, BJ. And they said the Democrats must continue to talk about the issues, as Sandy said, that are important to parents. Focus on the kids, improving math and reading scores, unfinished learning following the pandemic, school safety, addressing the teacher shortage in general, increasing veteran teacher salaries. Those are the kinds of issues that we should be talking about, and the importance of teachers being able to teach for the benefit of our kids. And I also want to just again point out that Charlie Crist's selection of Carla Hernandez Matz sends a great message, a very strong message about the importance of education for Democrats. She adds to the ticket in so many ways. She's a veteran teacher. She was the teacher of the year in her school, led the United Teachers of Dade County, head of the largest teachers union in the entire Southeast. Mom herself of two school-age kids, Hispanic, from Miami. She brings so much to the ticket in so many ways, and especially in the field of education. She will be able to speak to this issue and carry it statewide.
I think I'm glad you pointed that out, because the slate of candidates that we have running in Florida, statewide at least, truly represent not only the demographic diversity of the state, but really of the country. And I can't think of a better slate of candidates in a long time that are going to be on the ballot in November. Wes, what say you? What can you add to this?
Well, I want to tell Daniel there's hope, because we passed our 1 mil by 82% on Tuesday. So we will be continuing that. But, look, public education is under attack. The governor and Republicans have been attacking our teachers for years, with overemphasis on testing, micromanaging school board budgets and how they can allocate the money that comes in. There's a reason we started this school year with 9,000 teacher openings in the state of Florida, because teaching is so toxic. It's not worth the money, the penance that we pay these teachers. And to respond, our governor is now allowing veterans, and number one, thank you for your service, but number two, can come and teach just by passing a basic test. And that's not who we need educating our children. We need trained professional teachers who went to school for this to educate our children. And it's really, really, really disappointing because it's our children that are suffering. And especially in our communities, look, we have the nuts at our school board. I started going to the school board just to be the voice of reason in the room, because they were coming from Brevard, they were coming from Lake, they were coming from the villages to scream and yell at our school board members. And, we want our kids to know about Black history. The Ocoee Massacre happened in our county. It's very important for our children to understand the history of our community. And we've also got a tremendous number of Hispanic kids. And we need to talk about Puerto Rican history and Cuban history. These are the things that are being attacked right now. And we had, even up in Escambia County, a school board member went and took a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King off the wall and said that was CRT. This is basically, right now, it's any Black history is CRT, and they're going to attack it. And what scares me is we're seeing these racist parents, these domestic terrorists that are known as Moms for Liberty, dictating what our kids in Florida are going to learn. And we have got to reach out to our parents and say, listen, our children's public education is at stake, and we have got to do everything we can to send a message that we've got to get these sane and reasonable school board members on the board, but also a governor and a legislature and an attorney general who will support them and push back on all of these horrible laws.
All right, thanks for closing us out on that. I did not have an opportunity to be able to bring comments on the screen. I didn't figure that how to do that beforehand, but there have been a lot of comments. People are actually quite shocked on how great this panel is. What y'all think I was going to bring on? Some
Hey,
I brought on they're like, oh my God, this panel is so good. Wes, apparently, Wes is doing really well with the ladies. Go figure.
They're in for a very rude awakening.
So we're going to go with this last question, and what we'll do is obviously Sandy and Daniel, if you want to take a break for the ancestors' unpaid labor that was stolen from them on this question, you can, because I'm going to go directly to Terry and Wes on this, because this is a difficult question. Let me bring you guys up. Okay, so this question goes to you two. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because what we routinely see is that we're frequently told Democrats need to reach out to Black voters, reach out to Hispanic voters, reach out to voters of color in particular. But when we look at electoral outcomes and electoral turnout, we routinely see that Black voters turn out 89, 90+%, particularly Black women, for Democrats. Where the Democratic Party is actually struggling is white voters. And so, we hear about the 53% that voted for Trump and then 55% nationally when he ran for re-election. That numbers are kind of similar for Florida in the number of white women who turned out for Republicans, and a lot of them who are now upset now that we've got, Roe being overturned. So what is a message that we can do that will appeal to white voters? White people?
Terry, I'll let you start.
Well, BJ, and thank you, BJ. And but it's important to remember that of that 53%, approximately 40% of them are Republicans of the white voters. So that's going to heavily skew the white vote toward the Republicans to begin with. So it's important to keep that in mind. We need to win the NPAs. We need to win intelligent Republicans, especially on the issues, and of course, get out our Democratic votes. There are a lot of us around too, a lot of white Democratic men, women and men too, and we all need to get out and vote. And I think whether you're Black, white, green, blue, brown, whatever it is, pink. The contrast in this election could not be clearer at all. We've talked about this at length. The difference between the divisive Republican agenda and the Democratic agenda that is optimistic and will work for for Floridians. And I think we all need to carry that message to every voter and emphasize the Democrats' educational principles on Roe v. Wade, on immigration, on everything that we have, all of our various stands, and make sure that the voters understand the difference between Democrats and Republicans. And the good news, as I said, to continually and forcefully contrast what I call the dark dictatorial agenda replacing Floridians with the Democrats fighting for freedoms.
What say you, Wes?
I think you're 100% right, Terry. The message of freedom. We're not talking about abortion. We're talking about women to have the right of freedom over their own body. Like when you put it into those terms, you can 100% reach those people that are in the middle. We have got to talk about things like access to health care. That is not just a minority issue. That affects a lot of everybody across the board, honestly. Also, affordable housing. We seem to think for some reason that affordable housing is only a poor issue or only a persons of color issue. During our work with this rent stabilization, we've had people come to us and say, look, I make $120,000 a year. By the time I pay my student loans, I don't have money for housing. Which, by the way, the Biden administration is now helping you to work on your student loan debt. But our community here, Orange County, is a third Hispanic, a third African American, and a third white. So we are a very diverse community. And it's funny because a lot of the issues that resonate with any one particular group resonate across all groups. And so when we're talking about access to a free and fair public education, access to healthcare, access to affordable housing, that plays across all of our demographics. And so I think you're right. Sometimes we do hear people, well, I hear about all of these talks about different communities of color. Nobody's speaking to the white voters. But in fact, when we talk about issues-based campaigns, that cuts across every spectrum of this electorate.
I have a little anecdote, if I may. Do we have time, BJ?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I heard this today, attending a Democratic event, and a friend told me about an event he attended on election night. And it was a board meeting for an organization, a board dinner, and approximately 12 people were there, most of them Republicans. And they typically don't talk politics, but because it was election, and it was reported that Charlie Crist had won the Democratic nomination. And one woman who was sitting next to my friend said, well, you know what I call Democrats? I call them dumbbells. But this year I'm voting Democrat because I believe in a women's right to choose. And the woman across the table chimed in and said, me too. So it was the message. It was really interesting. I thought a great anecdote that there are people out there that are hearing, and finally it's getting through as to what the agenda is on the Republican side and the fact that people need to stand up. Thank you.
Sandy and Dan, any thoughts on this topic?
Can I make a funny?
Sure.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm looking at the comments, and it looks like Taylor did, where she quoted you when you said this, BJ. She said, where white Dems are struggling is with white voters. And she said, because we're doing our job. I mean, the collectively. I think that this comes up in every election. You have these candidates, either statewide or local, say, how do we need to reach out to black voters? What do we need to do in order for them to get out to the vote? Maybe not patronize them into thinking that because they're black or a person of color that they are going to absorb politics differently. They're not. I mean, the issues that we care about are the same issues that anyone cares about, regardless of your pigmentation. I think what the difference is you have to campaign a little bit differently. That's where it truly comes down to. You can't go into the African American community and think all you need to do is run a couple ads, go to a church maybe once on a Sunday, and you say, okay, you're good to go. I have some validators. I have some endorsers saying that I'm good, so I don't have to worry about that. We're all good. It's truly taking the time to not only show your face, make sure that you respect those elders that are going to be your diehard voters, that really are your validators, that really are going to be convincing their kids, their grandparents, their nieces and nephews to go out and vote. That's where you truly make that difference. And unless you don't understand that, then everything's going to be surface level, and you're not going to get that penetration that you need. And to add on top of that, recognize that just because you're a person of color and just because you're black doesn't mean that message is going to flow through if you're young, old, male, female. It's that message comes at them in different ways. The message that you give to someone that's me, I'm black, I'm 30, is going to be completely different than someone that may be retired, that may have a true appreciation as to why voting is important, that may not necessarily look at political parties in a kind of abstract kind of way. That's the thing that I think a lot of times candidates and campaigns really fall for.
And
I
Sandy, any
agree with
closing thoughts
Daniel
on this topic?
100%. Yes, Daniel hit the nail on the head. You really need to think about that the Black community is not a monolith. We are so different in many ways with different beliefs and different attitudes. He's right about the age differences. You know, I'm of that generation where to not vote was like blasphemy. I mean, please, you will vote, and you start with when you're 18, you go automatically, you're registered and you go to vote. As each generation has come along, you know, families are still reminding children why voting is so important for us because we didn't have the vote. But like Daniel said, different message for different components of the community, different age groups, even different economic groups. You know, upper middle class African Americans are maybe more concerned about education or certain things in a different way than, say, someone who has a minimum wage job and still interested in education, but they may be concerned about their children's ability to get hot lunch, their children's ability to afford school supplies, where someone else is more concerned about which school is preparing their kid the best for college or whatever. So when you learn how to speak to the different groups in the African American community, they will get the vote. And don't go in looking at certain people because someone said these are the leaders in the African American community. People make a big mistake in thinking that the African American community follows one or two people, and if they say do this, everybody's going to fall in line and do that. That is one of the worst mistakes that people make. People come in the community, they go to this pastor that's well known, and they think if he endorses me, I've got the whole community behind me. There may be people in the community that can't stand that pastor, that would never
Mhm.
even go to his church. I hate to say that. But this whole thing about who the leaders are in communities of color has tripped up a lot of people in seeking to get the vote.
If I can just jump in with one last little thing on that,
Sure.
because I think we've all kind of said the exact same thing. As a party, we have got to stop putting people in buckets. Black voters are this way, Hispanic voters are that way, women are voting this way. Voters will tell you what's important to them. We have done a horrible job listening to them. You know, we have tried to put messaging for one group and then just shove it down their throat. We have got to do a much better job of micro targeting, micro messaging, and listening to the community and to the voters and let them tell us what the issue is, because no one group is monolithic, period.
That's a great point, Wes. That's absolutely, all of you have made wonderful points on that. And I would just like again to repeat what all of us have said in different ways also, is it is incumbent on all of us on the screen, all of you who are watching, everybody to get the message out. We all need to work together and do everything we can in every avenue possible to get the message out this year, because the stakes have never been higher. And we all know that, and it's critical that we get our Democrats elected.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. we got through the first live stream, guys.
Yay!
Wow.
So,
Fantastic.
again, if you want to continue to see content like this, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast as well as to the We Make Florida live stream. Set your notification bell. If you want to see more content like this, tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, because this show is for all of you, the viewers. We're doing it for you. We're not doing it for ourselves. So, again, we had a lot of hiccups, and I think Russia's interfering now, so we're going to sign off shortly and call it a day. So take
Thank
care,
you, everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, BJ. Good night.
Good night.
Let's see. Oh my God, I just realized how to bring up comments.
Ah,
Let's see.
where do you see the comments?
Taylor says, I would love more shows. So hopefully we're going to do that. Okay, next time. We'll get it next time. We'll get it next time. Armor Evans says, I like this. Well, we like you too. Nice. Watch out, Joy Reid. The Queen. Somebody said there's a lot. Oh, is that the comment you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it was.
Wait, who's the queen?
Joy Reid, it said.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That was the comment.
Oh, yeah, that's the one you were talking about. Okay, now I know how to do it. Okay, so next time. Somebody saying CRT is a college course. You know it, we know it.
We know it.
All
Michael, we
right.
just finished.
All right, guys. Bye.